literally scared to start filming this video. Hello my friends, welcome back to my channel. I'm so terrified to be filming this video, but I figured it was finally time. You know that one book that is on your TBR and has been on your TBR for a long time? Every time you look at your shelves, it just stares back at you. It's also that book on Libby that keeps coming up and you just keep hitting deliver later, deliver later, deliver later. Yeah, today is the day, and we are going to be starting the most intimidating book on my TBR. Been wanting to start reading for a while. I thought it would be fun if I filmed my reactions because it is quite a big book. It is very popular. Then I saw a video by a booktuber named Jamie. I will link her page below where she just read the most intimidating book on her TBR, and I was like, that is exactly what I need to get myself started to reading this book.
Nellie, tell us the book already.
It is, drumroll please, The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. Wow, I'm so incredibly intimidated by Kristen Hanna books. I'm not sure why. When I got back into reading, specifically when I started filming for BookTube, I bought several of her books, and I've only read one of them. I read The Great Alone. I absolutely loved it. It was a very heavy book. It's definitely a book that was somewhat out of my comfort zone. And even though I loved it so much, I just knew that I couldn't back to back Kristen Hanna books. Like I wanted to spread them out, maybe do one a month. And it's been a few months and I have not done any more. However, every single time somebody sees this book on my shelf, they yell at me through the comment section, asking me why I have not read it. And the thing is, I'm scared. I told myself the next time it popped up on Libby, I was not going to delay it any longer and I was just going to read this book. Coincidentally, one of my best friends just finished reading this book and I told her I was going to read it while she was reading it. I didn't, and so here I am making up for that. I also think it's a really good time for me to start this video because it's a Friday and I get quite a bit of reading done on the weekend, and I know myself, the thing about me is I get frustrated if I don't move at a fast pace through a book. And that's another thing with Kristen Hanna books, that they force me to slow down, which is a good thing. But when I am feeling general trauma from a book, knowing that it's going to take me longer to get through it and like more days to be in this deep emotional, it's tough for me. So I feel like starting this on a weekend is going to be really helpful as well, just because I'm going to be able to get a chunk of the reading done. Also going to go into my Libby app and finally accept this hold. It's done, guys. I don't really think there's much else to say except for let's get into this book. Only 2 chapters in, but I wanted to do a first impression. I feel like with historical fiction, it's pretty common for the beginning to be very slow paced as we just ramp up towards an ending that's normally pretty tragic. I just finished another World War II historical fiction called Ashes in the Snow. Absolutely loved that book. I gave it 5 stars, but I would say like the first third of the book, I was feeling that it was moving rather slowly. So I was pushing myself towards that point, which I felt like I would actually be sucked in, which did happen. But with this book, I'd say it's totally different. Within the first 2 chapters, you're already so sucked into the story. In the first chapter, you're in the present day, which is 1995 in this book, and seeing an older woman who you don't know who she is in the story so far, but she is looking back at her life and she's holding this war card, and her son comes up and her son is like, who is that? So clearly it's not her own. And then the next chapter, you are right back in memories of a mother who is living in France and her husband is being called away to war. So I'm assuming that is the older woman from the first chapter, but you're not really sure. And so that's interesting. I like how she set up the book with you already having questions on, okay, is this the person at the end, or is she going to have a twist? And I feel like she did such a good job at even just painting the picture of putting you right into this woman's life. So obviously this is your very first impressions, but so far I feel like good start. I feel like I'm already wanting to know what's happening next, which again, with historical fiction, I feel like with me, it can go either way. So anyways, I'm going to keep reading and I will give you guys an update around the 100-page mark. I'm officially 100 pages in. Just for reference, it's only noon. So I physically read part of this and then I was listening to some of it in the car on the way to go take my son out to do a few things. It honestly already has me hooked to the story, which is actually crazy to me. We are automatically thrown into Vianne and Isabel's story. And Isabel are two sisters who are living in France. Their mother passed away and their dad, just after coming back from the war, hasn't been the same. According to the sisters' perspective, at the first chance he could get, he just dumped them off. And so we have Vianne, the older sister, taking a look at Vianne's life. She's married and has a child, but has talked about her struggles with infertility and miscarriages really affected her and her relationship with her younger sister. She just found herself in the depths of her sorrow after her miscarriages, unable to be the mother figure that her little sister needed. And so her husband sent Isabel to a boarding school. Isabel has bounced around boarding schools because she continues to get kicked out. She's very strong-willed, and that has continued up until her 19th birthday. And now both of these sisters are in different parts of France. Straight from there, we are already seeing Hitler's influence on France and the impact he's having on France, because Vianne's husband is quickly called away too. And Isabel ends up being in Paris with her dad when there are lots of bombs dropped by the Germans. But the two of them are just really approaching the Germans occupying France in a very different way. Obviously, Vianne has her daughter Sophie to take care of, and so she is very much more give them what they want, eventually they'll leave, just banking on her husband coming back. Whereas Isabel is much more of the strong-willed one who's, no, we need to fight back. Like, we can't let the Germans take over France. Almost to a point of recklessness, though. And at the point in the story, a German officer has essentially just walked into their house and been like, hi, I have orders to just live here. And Vianne's, hold on a second, this is my house, what do you mean? And he's, unfortunately, these are the rules I've been given, I have to follow them, and you can either stay here with me in this house or you have to leave. And so Isabel is really struggling with letting this soldier live with them. She wants Vianne to retaliate as the Germans are putting more and more restrictions on them, and Vianne is taking a much different approach, which I honestly see why, just as a mother myself. Like, your child comes first, and then you would go to for your child to be safe, I really connect with. But it's just so interesting because we just have these two sisters who are dealing with these issues in very different ways, and I don't think either one of them is necessarily wrong. They're just different because they have different priorities and they have different responsibilities. I just realized my little bracelet that I had on. My son and my daughter have been making me beautiful pipe cleaner and bead jewelry, so that's what this is. Anyways, I am pleasantly surprised at how invested I am in this story already. The fact that I'm already 100 pages in and it's like just midday. Excited to keep reading. I'm just starting to get worried because I do feel like this book is going to destroy me. And I am not somebody who generally cries during books, really ever. I could probably think of 2 books that ever made me tear up in my entire life. But everyone says that this book destroys you as you continue reading it, and especially at the end. So we'll see where that goes. Anyways, I think I am going to at least try to read another 100 pages today and continue that pattern through, see how far we get. But I will update you guys as I read. I have officially reached the halfway point on The Nightingale. I am on page 285, and this book is so good. It's crazy that I've been putting this book off for so long. I think for most of us, we feel like Kristen Hanna is super intimidating, but I forget how approachable and consumable her historical fiction novels are. She has a way of writing really page-turning stories where you don't have to force yourself to continue reading. You just want to know what's happening next. And I am loving following these sisters' stories. First of all, let me just say I'm not going to give any spoilers, but I just will give little details about the story that I feel like will help with my summaries and my reactions. Since my last update, Vianne and Isabel's have split again. Still very much just trying her best to keep her daughter alive. And it's so hard because you can see that she is having just this really big internal struggle on the fact that she has to just keep quiet and not speak up when bad things are happening in order to not be under the Germans' microscope. Like, she has a few experiences where she speaks up or she does something and it doesn't have the best consequences, and so she is just battling within herself. And even her daughter has been watching her and just being like, Mom, like, why aren't we, like, this is wrong, why aren't we speaking up? But Vianne is just trying to do her best as a young mom, and it just really makes me think. It just makes me think a lot, because obviously I'm a mom, and it's just very interesting to see somebody who is having to essentially sacrifice, in a sense, her morals to a degree in order to keep her kid physically safe. And then we have Isabel, who doesn't have those responsibilities of being a mother, and who's just so outraged by anybody who's not being an active part in the rebellion against Nazi Germany and their occupation of France. And so you see Isabel split off because she cannot just stay silent, and you follow her through just her journey on taking a less passive approach to trying to free France, and her just going undercover to do a few different things. I'm also learning a lot as I'm reading a captivating historical fiction, just learning about what France was like at that time, how it was mostly woman dominated, because at the beginning of this story they had taken all of the able-bodied men out to protect them, and now all of those men are prisoners of war in Germany. What's been really interesting to me lately is the fact that on Isabel's side in Paris, she is seeing a lot of British and Canadian airmen who were dropping bombs on the Germans, and their planes were shot down, and then they are just terrified in a country they don't know the language, and if anybody is caught helping them escape, then they'll be shot on sight, essentially. And it's just so interesting because I never thought about what would happen if soldiers who were fighting against the Germans from other countries were found by the Germans. And so it's just really interesting. I feel like I'm learning so much and I'm so invested. I have a family day ahead of me, but we are going to be in the car for a bit, so I'm going to bring my book just in case I'm able to read along the way, and then any chance I get, I will also try to listen to the audiobook, because I want to be able to get at least another 100 pages finished today, if not 150. That way we can finish this book tomorrow. I'm just having such a great time, and I already feel like I'm going to be raving about this book. Again, still terrified about, I'm sure, what will be a devastating, really just like emotionally wrecking ending, but I'm excited. So I will update you guys again at the end of today. I just reached the 400 page mark. I got some reading done in the car, and then when we got home, as my kids were taking a nap, I got a little bit more reading done, and the stakes are so high right now for both sisters that I'm starting to feel like sick to my stomach, like I have to know what happens next. It's just been really interesting to see both of their stories unfold, and see one sister who's fully choosing to be in certain situations that put her in more danger, and then another sister who's not, and she's still ending up in these situations. Just reading this book too, as much as it is a story, is just making me think about so much about how this happened in real life and how insane it is that people were treated like this. And it's also interesting that in this story we have a German officer who seems honestly reluctant to do his job once he sees how they're needing to treat the people. It was just really interesting to see an officer humanized, and how some of these officers had no choice but to do what they were supposed to do. And like, obviously having compassion for that, but at the same time, nothing really excuses the way that these people were treated. It's just absolutely crazy. And just watching these sisters both grow in different ways is just so interesting to see. And again, just really makes you question yourself and what you would do if you were put in these certain situations. And there's one situation where Vianne's best friend is a Jew, and there are just a few different things as the Nazis' behavior progresses for the worse in France towards Jews. And just seeing that happen over time and the choices that she is forced to make to protect her own kids, but also to decide whether or not to protect her friend, and knowing she's putting herself in danger to do that. It's just heartbreaking. I can totally see why people love this book so much, because it has everything you would want in a book. Like I said before, it's very consumable. It seems intimidating from the outside, but as soon as you start it, it's just not intimidating anymore. You're fully hooked on the story and you want to just keep reading. The writing is just so incredible. Like, I feel like I'm fully in this story, putting myself in all these positions, and you know that somebody's a really good writer when she is showing you just like all sides of the equation. Like I said, like she's showing you this German officer who somewhat trying to help Vianne, and you're seeing just like the differences between the two sisters. You're seeing things that are happening to the Jews. You're just seeing all these decisions made by people in very different scenarios. They're all just facing choices. They're having to make these decisions, and you can't really fault them, even if it was a decision that you think was a dumb decision, because you're seeing what high stakes that they're facing and how they're just trying to do the best that they can. It is interesting as well to see everybody's morals and how important what is right and wrong is to them while they're suffering and while they're going through hard things. I have about 170 pages left, I think. 164. I don't know if I'll finish it tonight. I do think I'm going to get quite a bit more reading done, so I could, but it'll just be interesting to see how it goes. Just like I said in the beginning of the story, the older woman, we have a few chapters where we flash back to this older woman who's in quote unquote the present day, even though it's not 2025, it's in 1995. And she is being invited to come to this event where they're commemorating the people who helped smuggle the airmen out, and not just that, but who helped pass sensitive information that are going to be really pivotal in France right now as they are trying to fight back against the situation that they're in. And you just don't know who she is. So it's very interesting. So there's a bit of a mystery going on as well that's just keeping me on the edge of my seat. Just a lot has happened, and it's taken a few twists and turns I didn't think it would take. I've sympathized with people I didn't think I would sympathize with. Yeah, overall, I'm just really enjoying it. So I will catch up with you guys as I am closer to finishing the end of this book. This one got me. I'm finishing this book way faster than I thought I was going to. I only have about 50 pages left, and I'm just thinking I'm going to finish it right now, tonight. I don't think I can take much more emotional devastation, but I know it's coming, and part of me is I'd rather just finish it tonight, know what happens. I've already cried once today, and then give you guys my thoughts on the ending tomorrow. I don't know if that makes sense, but it makes sense in my head, so I'm just gonna do that. I'm just worried because I'm like, my heart has already been ripped out, but I have to know, I have to finish it. I've got to see it through. So here we go. is incredible. Incredibly sad, but also so full of hope, and I don't even know what to say. I feel like I'm gonna have to sleep on it and come back tomorrow with my final thoughts on this. You guys, I don't even know what to say. I'm still trying to gather my thoughts. It's the next day. I feel like I just had a completely life-altering experience reading this book, and I'm not exaggerating by saying that. I loved this book. I can't fault myself for putting this book off because it is such an experience I really think you should be ready for. It is very emotionally hard to read at certain points. I think for anybody who's reading it, even if you don't have certain triggers, I just think the despicable treatment of human beings that you can see throughout this book is just so heartbreaking. I absolutely loved the way that Kristen Hanna told this story through the characters that she chose. I loved seeing the two sisters in this because I really think that the reason why she chose two sisters is to show two different sides of the same coin. Two people who are trying to protect and preserve very important things in a time where you couldn't choose both of these morals. You had to choose one. So we had Vianne, who was so desperate to protect her child above all else that she at times had to sacrifice certain feelings of patriotism for her country, or she just had to do some things that later on she was just, oh, I wish I hadn't done that, in order to keep her daughter safe. And at the end of the day, whether or not that was worth it to her, that's just what she valued, which wasn't a bad thing. I don't think it's a bad thing to value your family. And then we had Isabel, who valued country over all else, over familial relationships. To a certain extent, obviously, you can still see the ties that bind this little family together and how much they truly loved each other, because this truly is, like the cover says, a portrait of love and war. And so it was just really interesting to see Isabel's perspective as well, where she was willing to give up living near her family and certain family relationships so that she could be an active member in just the French resistance. Again, with this being a completely spoiler-free vlog, I don't want to say much more than that, other than I loved how this author really explored both of those sides. She really appealed to your sense of right and wrong and just made you think about what you would do in this same position. Pray that we never end up in a position like these women were in. But it's a fact that it has happened in history, and I think it's important to learn about it and to just ask yourself these questions, so that if you're ever faced with any decisions like these, any moral dilemmas, maybe not to that extent, but everyone will face a moral dilemma in their life, then you will know where your values lie. I think it was so perfectly done. I don't have a single thing that I could say about this. There was a theme that reminded me, honestly, a lot of In the Great Alone, where in The Great Alone you're seeing a much more flawed parent, I would say, but you're seeing the lengths that they would go to for a child. And in here, you're seeing that as well, and just standing up for yourself and standing up for what's right and just learning how to do that within your circumstances. It has just cemented Kristen Hanna as probably one of my favorite authors, if not my favorite author of all time. This is an infinity star read for me, guys. It's not just a 5-star read. It is an infinity star read. And as you saw, I'm sure, me ugly crying. I do not cry in books lightly. I cry maybe like once a year when I read a book, maybe. And I read a lot of books per year. This is number 128, I want to say. I do not say this lightly. This book is incredible. This book will move you. And this book, if everybody could get their hands on it and truly sink this message in, the world would be a better place. Anyways, it's time for me to get off of my soapbox, but I am just so thrilled with my reading experience of this book. I'm so grateful for all the people who have commented, all of you guys who have told me how much I needed to read this book, because truthfully, I loved it. I loved it. It's a book I will think about for years to come, and it is now going to be an auto-recommend book for me, for everybody. And I love having books like this that can really transcend gender, transcend age, transcend culture, as far as people who can read this and enjoy it. I love having books like this that I can just recommend to anybody with like my full chest and be like, this book will change you. So thank you. Thank you guys for the recommendation, and thank you guys so much for watching this video. I really appreciate everybody who watches my videos, especially if you watch them to the end, because this is like my dream job, to be able to be on YouTube, to be creating content about books, which is my favorite hobby ever. If you've read this book, I would love to hear from you, your thoughts on it, your reading experience. If you haven't read it but want to, or don't really know what to comment, please leave me the dove emoji in my comments below. If you want to see more videos like this where I tackle intimidating books, please let me know too. This was really fun to film. That's all I have for you, my friends, so I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!